Part 27. My koi sister is 3.5 years old. Author, Xia Sheng. Chapter 261. Chapter 261. The Empress serves as a servant. Sushui, you must not believe what that magician says. You are a little goddess, you should be able to tell what is fake, right? Fujuxiao looked serious, thinking that someone would pick her own cabbage in the future, which made her feel very uncomfortable. Sushui looked back at him. Actually, I feel that there is a force of rules in her words. It seems, to wait for me. Sushui is a little confused. Is it the power of rules that has allowed their family to inherit it for thousands of years? Can it be passed down for thousands of years just for a divination? Sushui is puzzled. As soon as Fujuxiao heard this, the alarm bells rang loudly. Sushui, their clan has been passed down for thousands of years. In this case, they have been passed down for many years just to wait for you. Then, it must be a big deal. Fujuxiao looked solemn. Otherwise, what would I do if I waited for you for so long for no reason? Sushui thought for a while and nodded immediately. Brother Juxiao has more experience. Fujuxiao saw that she had listened for a while, and then nodded with satisfaction. Fujuxiao felt sour. Sushui was only 5 years old, but she was so cute. How many people would miss her when she grows up? Just thinking about it makes me dizzy. As soon as the two of them stepped down the steps, they saw Jing Chen looking at Fujuxiao. At this moment, Jing Chen seemed to have a trace of Buddha's light in his body. His eyes when he looked at Fujuxiao were full of pity and hate. That iron cannot be turned into steel. You are such a good person, why do you have a mouth? Even a mute can speak better than you. Fujuxiao frowned slightly and looked at him. What do you mean? Jing Chen looked at him blankly. He didn't know why, but he just wanted to say this. Fujuxiao didn't argue with him, just asked someone to buy a lot of food, and then got into the carriage with Sushui. The carriage headed all the way towards the capital city of Shenyuan, Shengjing. Shenyuan was in full bloom, and there were statues of Emperor Lingxiao everywhere. Fujuxiao was extremely disdainful. The carriage went all the way north, and the closer it got to Shengjing, the stronger the aura of the fallen angel became. Sushui frowned. There is really a remnant of the fallen angel. The fallen angel must have died, and he probably has obsessions in the world. Sushui, will going to see the remains of the fallen angel have any impact on you? Fujuxiao was a little worried. After all, the fallen angel was opposed to the divine world. Sushui shook her head. She just felt that breath is somewhat familiar. But she had never come into contact with a fallen angel before. The closer the carriage got to Shengjing, the busier the road became, and the more people headed towards Shengjing. I both hope he is Emperor Lingxiao, and I also hope he is not. It can be seen that these are the followers of the emperor. Hope to see the true face of the emperor, but also afraid of the fact that he is really the emperor of Lingxiao, but he has died long ago. Outside the gate of Shengjing city, traffic has begun to rush and it is extremely congested. What's over there? Why is there a special passage? Are there people kneeling on both sides? Sushui looked at the two city gates. One side was crowded, and the other side was empty. That one is used by the saint for traveling. Ordinary people are not allowed to pass through it. The Saintess clan is the lineage of the maids who served Emperor Lingxiao back then. Ah, the Saintess Guard of Honor is really here? Could it be that, are they really here to see the rumored remains of the dead gods? Everyone was a little frightened. Sure enough, after a while, a large number of women wearing a white dress and veil came slowly from far away. They have an ethereal figure, and they look a bit fairy-like. The saints are here. Isn't it really the emperor in the crystal coffin? Everyone was silent, their hearts heavy. Fujuxiao asked Wang Gonggong to take out the Dai Viet token. After a while, someone jumped up and reported it. The empress should also come out, right? Speaking of the empress, many people became excited. Shen Yuan was divided into two factions, one was a believer in gods and the other was a royalist faction. Originally, the royal family was fighting among themselves, and the voice of the people was at stake. Our empress is truly the chosen one. The emperor's uncles killed each other, and no one could inherit the throne. Instead, it fell to a wandering girl. Everyone thought that the throne would fall into the hands of the Grand Master. Who knew, it only took 3 days. The little empress, who was no taller than the Grand Master, had the entire Grand Master's residence raided. Everyone was executed. In just half a year, our Shen Yuan has taken on a new look. Everyone says that the little empress is the only emperor in the ages and a born emperor. It's a pity that she grew up outside and never belonged to Shen Yuan. There is no one she likes in the entire royal family. She is not interested in anything. Even the courtiers who wanted to hug the little empress couldn't find a way. I don't know where she learned the ability to govern a country. In the past, the reputation of the royal family was not good, but after the young empress came to power, she gained many supporters. Of course it's a gift from heaven, it's a gift from heaven. After all, we, Shen Yuan, have given birth to girls whom the gods love. We are already a country that deserves God's mercy. Sushui's eyes were bright and her face was filled with pride. Jia is so amazing, Jia is indeed the best. As soon as everyone lowered their heads, they saw a girl who was shorter than their empress making a satisfied comment, as if she were an elder, and they all frowned. Where did the brat call the empress by her first name? That's right, it's too inappropriate. Sushui blinked her eyes, but Jia is my maid. Everyone's face was filled with anger. You bastard, you dare to insult the empress, I will report you to the royal family and teach you the rules. You are so young and have no respect for your elders and no manners. Everyone rebuked them angrily, with angry faces on their faces. Some people even saw that they were foreigners and tried to take action. While the crowd was in a commotion, a martial law was enforced in front of them, and everyone was pushed aside. Your Majesty's Guard of Honor, please give way. Your Majesty's Guard of Honor, please give way. Everyone exclaimed and fell to their knees. Some people even gloated, you are dead. The Empress attaches great importance to rules. She killed half of the court in half a year. She will not tolerate someone with no rules like you. Countless guardsmen, wearing armor and covered with cold light, stood on both sides to greet the little man. The little figure was wearing a dragon robe and had a solemn expression on her face. Almost everyone was prostrate at her feet. In just 6 months, she has grown to a terrifying stage. Everyone watched helplessly as she walked out of the city gate with firm steps. Since the Empress ascended the throne, she has rarely appeared in the public eye, but now she walked out of the city gate step by step, surprising everyone. Each generation of emperors would seek the protection of a saint in order to gain the love of the gods' followers. She was the only one who didn't want to see the saint at all. Even after he succeeded to the throne, he never publicly recognized the saint. At this moment, she walked towards Yan Sushui step by step. In the horrified eyes of everyone. In front of thousands of people, she took off her imperial crown with both hands, lifted up her skirt, and knelt upright in front of Sushui. My maid Jia, I have met the master. Jia misses you so much. The little girl's eyes are red. She is so virtuous and capable. Please trouble the master to come and see her. Everybody's eyes widened. Their king knelt before the girl who spoke so shamelessly. Calling herself, maid. End of this chapter. My koi sister is 3.5 years old. Author, Xia Sheng. Chapter 262. Chapter 262 The Love of Gods. The courtiers were already stunned. The born emperor they were so proud of actually knelt in front of that little girl. The empress is their pride. Even the girl was ignorant, with an innocent look on her face, not yet enlightened. Nonsense, the empress is a born emperor, how can she kneel down and worship like an ordinary person? She can't bear your gift. All the veterans were shocked and horrified. This is Quan Shenjiayuan's pride. She can't bear it? Who can bear it? Is that what Lao Shiza calls a saint? She is just a servant of a god, how can she be worthy of my gift? Jia glanced at the courtier with a sharp look on her eyebrows. Without the master, Jia would not be where she is today. She is Jia's savior. Jia always stands behind Sushui and abides by her duty as a maid. The usual serious face was now standing behind Sushui with a smile on his face. It's still a pleasure to be a maid. But you are the emperor of Shenyuan, you represent Shenyuan. Jia waved her hand, it's a big deal and I won't do it. I didn't even want to do it. Ministers. The master said, I will be the emperor, and she will let me be the maid. I want to be the maid. Jia looked at Sushui longingly. Sister Ayu acts properly and arranges things in an orderly manner. She can't compare to Ah. All the courtiers were shaken. You came back to be the emperor, just to compete for the position of the eldest maid? At this moment, I saw that they were unsmiling and serious. They looked like the empress who owed her 1,000,000 taels of silver and had not paid back. They looked at Sushui with fawning faces. Can I come back? Can you sleep without Jia rubbing your back? You must not be used to others taking care of you. I have copied the recipe from the Shenyuan royal family and will cook it for you later. Being an emperor is really boring. I wake up earlier than a chicken and go to bed later than a dog. It's not interesting to serve you tea and water, Jia complained while accompanying Sushui into the palace. The courtiers looked at each other and said, damn it, the empress doesn't want to do this anymore. At this time, they did not dare to attack Yan Sushui anymore, and all of them followed behind obediently, determined to coax Yan Sushui to leave the empress behind. The empress has stayed in Shenyuan for half a year, and they know her character very well. I have never seen the empress smile so brightly. The courtier murmured, and his cheeks hurt just thinking about it. The empress had to endure all the humiliation and become the emperor, but she just wanted to go back to being a maid. What? Do you still compete for jobs? The common people who had spoken rudely to Yan Sushui just now turned pale. She is really the empress's master. Everyone was stunned. Master, are you here for the remains of the gods? Huh, Jia will take you to see them only when the saint and the old witch are here. Can we open the coffin together? Speaking of which, the power of Shenyuan is divided into two halves. One half is in the royal family, and the other half is in the saintess clan. The saint was an attendant who served Emperor Lingxiao back then. The royal family is the bloodline of the person who was the emperor's favorite. It's not a direct line, she is a princess, and it was her brother who was the emperor at the time. But speaking of it, they all represent their respective political powers. Are they married? Sushui is very curious. Jia glanced at Sushui with a strange expression. I have a book here that has been passed down from the first generation. Only every emperor can read it. Do you want to read it? Jia spoke very quietly. It will be passed down to each emperor before his death. But Sushui is her master, the one who saves her life. Hers is equal to Sushui's. There may be a big misunderstanding here. Jia looked strange. The love between gods and mortals has been passed down for hundreds of years and is a couple recognized by the whole people. Jia looked at it and said, holy shit. The truth is simply horrible. Sushui was not interested at first, but now her curiosity was aroused. I'll have someone fetch the booklet. The coffin will be opened in about half an hour, so I'll have time to read it. Jia immediately ordered someone to go back secretly to get it. Fujuxiao was incognito as the emperor, and Jia didn't even give him a look. She even suspected that the other party wanted to take away her job. After all, Fujuxiao was too considerate of Sushui. What's so good about the remains of a licking dog? Some people are handsome in appearance, but ugly on the inside. I'm talking about Emperor Ling Xiao. God admires a woman. Fu Jixiao rolled his eyes and looked at the fact that the whole country came down to pay homage to Ling Xiao. Very dissatisfied. I don't know why, but hearing the name Ling Xiao makes me want to explode. I feel like a hedgehog, just want to explode. Don't you want to see it? Sushui raised the book in her hand. Fu Jixiao muttered, what's good to see is just his dog-licking behavior, but his head came up. The first sentence made his eyes go dark. This is the diary of Princess Shen Yuan. Even, Shen Yuan was directly named after her from then on. That's not right. Didn't Emperor Ling Xiao say that Princess Shen Yuan was a disabled person at the beginning? How could she still write a diary? Fu Jixiao was a little skeptical, always feeling that this diary would subvert his imagination. I don't know why, but I feel hairy all over my body. Have shares. An ominous premonition. February 15th, the sun is shining brightly, suitable for an outing. I just happened to be out of the palace to play and attend a prayer meeting. There are many gods that people believe in, and they all hope that the gods will protect the dynasty and bring good weather. Shen Yuan should also go and pray. Sneakily leave the palace incognito. There are so many believers in the temple. It can be seen from this that Princess Shen Yuan is a very lively person. It is clear that in the documents recorded by the gods, she is extremely dull. Unhappy, it started raining heavily before entering the temple. However, the temple was so crowded that Yuan had nowhere to stay. I'm so smart. Opposite the temple, there is a wild temple that is not very popular. It looks shabby, but it can shelter from the rain. There was also a pitiful, dusty statue of the inside. Great, I can go in and take shelter from the rain. Fortunately there is a wild who is not good at incense. I had only been sitting on the futon for a quarter of an hour when suddenly, I saw a figure floating out of the dusty statue of the god. Looks exactly like the statue. I was stunned and didn't dare to move for a while. Did he want to my essence? Is he a monster? It looks like you want to covet my energy. Gradually, the diary seemed a little frightened. How to do? He thinks I am his only believer in the world? He looked so fierce. I said no, I was here to take shelter from the rain. Would he kill me? Is he seriously ill? I didn't say anything, but he actually looked at me with pity, dug out his own eyes, and asked me if I wanted it. Mother, what kind of madness is this, picking your eyes whenever you disagree? I'm so scared, I hate rainy days, I never want to take shelter from the rain again. Fu Jixiao looked at the booklet blankly. Is this the true first encounter in the legend where the and his only believer fell in love? Surprisingly, the two versions are completely different. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. My koi sister is 3.5 years old. Author, Xia Sheng. Chapter 263. Chapter 263. Welcome from Heaven and Earth. Sushui's eyes widened. Fu Jixiao is even more unbelievable, even worse. There was an inexplicable pain in his heart. It has been said that Shen Yuan has been in love for hundreds of years, and the princess fell in love like this? The records of these two people seem to be about the same thing, but they don't seem to be. Fu Jixiao was stunned. Emperor's record, the sky is full of gods and Buddhas, but she only chooses me. Enter my temple and kneel under my futon. Princess Shen Yuan, she found a wild temple with no incense to take shelter from the rain, and met a lunatic who picked his eyes. The same thing is actually two extreme deviations. So, Emperor Ling Xiao gave her eyes, taste, and sounds. It was all a mistake. Just because she was too scared to say anything, Fu Jixiao was stunned. Do the people know that the CP they have believed in for hundreds of years is a mistake? The emperor wrote that she likes flowers. Emperor Lingxiao used blood as a medium to bloom a whole mountain of flowers. Princess Shen Yuan was moved to tears. Fu Juxiao looked at Jia. This thing moved all the people so much that they couldn't help but move. Jia silently turned over a few pages of Princess Shen Yuan's diary and read on it. I'm probably in trouble. I decided to run away. I had people dig a tunnel secretly, and used a secret method to isolate it from the gods' exploration. The tunnel was under a mountain and it took 2 years to successfully dig it. I looked at that mountain every day, and then I watched helplessly as he cut his own meridians with a knife, and countless blood spilled into the world. All the blood fell to the ground and turned into an invincible divine flower. The entire mountain was directly reorganized, squeezing and smashing the tunnel that had been dug for 2 years. He asked me with a smile on his face, "Are you satisfied?" I think I saw his murderous intent at that moment. I had no choice but to nod. With tears in my eyes I cried and admired it at the same time. The more satisfied he became. What a pervert he was. God has lived too long, and he may have driven himself crazy ill. Fu Juxiao's eyelids twitched. Princess Shen Yuan likes to watch fireworks. Why does the emperor use his cultivation to explode fireworks? Jia turned another page. I planned another escape, just waiting for the fireworks to explode as a signal. I waited and waited, waiting for the fireworks. He suddenly looked at me crazily and said, "My believers should have everything in the world. Whatever you want, I'll give it to you." Under my shocked gaze, he exploded a firework after 100 years of cultivation, and it lasted all night long. My signal, who knows where the signal went? It's been a night of bombing. I just want his life. This sentence shows the faint madness of Princess Shen Yuan. Jia scratched the little hair on her head. Finally, someone can keep the secret with me. Keeping the secret is so hard. Everyone is obsessed with the fact that the emperor and Princess Shen Yuan are a couple, but she is the only one who knows the truth, which is so uncomfortable. So, in such a thick book, everything they recorded is the opposite. Fu Juxiao's face twitched. Is Emperor Lingxiao mentally ill? Absolutely. There is another big thing. It was Princess Shen Yuan's most successful escape. She had been escaping for 3 days and was captured by Emperor Lingxiao. She was trembling and crying, thinking that Emperor Lingxiao was going to skin her. "I have cramps in the end," the emperor said affectionately. "You are a mortal, and I am a god. You know that you are not worthy of me, so I would rather live with you. From now on, we will live and die together. I live, you die, I die. I will give half of my lifespan to the princess." This is the part in the legend when the emperor and the mortal fell in love, were so in love that they couldn't part with each other, and shared a long life. Later, Xian Fanlian was adapted into an opera, and it is still extremely popular today. Fu Juxiao scolded with a dark face, "Idiot. I've never seen such a stupid idiot. Is he out of his mind? He came to take shelter from the rain, but he lost half of his cultivation. How did he become a god? Did he enter the Tao through stupidity?" Jia waved his hand. "That's not all, the royal family knows more. After all, he is the lord of the fallen angel realm. This is why he came to you." Jia lowered her voice. "Actually, the fallen god realm is also quite unlucky. It is said that the lord of the fallen god realm had a tribulation that he never passed. He was thrown into reincarnation and recultivation. His subordinates used countless methods to guide him to recultivate. At the age of more than 20 years old, he returned to the fallen god realm and became an emperor. Although he is young, his cultivation level is astonishing. Before I could breathe a sigh of relief, I encountered that calamity. Originally, I thought that Shen Yuan was just a mortal woman and wouldn't live long. Who knew that Emperor Lingxiao would give her half of her cultivation and teach her the method of cultivation? I'm just waiting for her to ascend to the fallen angel realm and get married together. Princess Shen Yuan is actually a rare genius, and she is extremely hard-working, practicing almost day and night. The fallen angel's realm is also moved by this, and even blesses her. Wait, 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 Princess Shen Yuan has reached the 8th year of cultivation and has ascended. Amid all the expectations of Emperor Ling Xiao and the fallen angel's realm, a colorful ray of light stunned the emperor, and his little believer soared to the god realm. He became a full-fledged god. Fu Juxiao pinched Princess Shen Yuan's diary. Perhaps, this guy planned to fly to the god realm from the beginning. Emperor Ling Xiao spit out a mouthful of blood, and the emotional calamity broke out on the spot. This calamity failed. Well, so we dug up the remains of Emperor Ling Xiao. Jia waved her hand. Love brain, eh? Then is he really dead? Sushui asked in a low voice. That's not true. Emperor Ling Xiao is the lord of the fallen angel realm, and he was immediately thrown into the second reincarnation by his subordinates to practice again. The incorruptible remains dug out now are just a residual thought to support him. No wonder the fallen angel's realm wants to fight to the death with the god realm. Fu Juxiao looked disgusted. He also said to Sushui, look, this is the end of the love brain. What about Princess Shen Yuan? Why have I never seen her after she ascended? Sushui was a little curious. With so many gods in the divine world, she should have heard about such a vigorous ascension. Speaking of which, Princess Shen Yuan is also a little strange. In front of everyone, she has obviously ascended to become a god, but when she ascended, it seemed as if her body was about to loosen up, and her whole person became transparent. It was like, the 3 souls and 7 souls were incomplete. I don't know what happened next. After all, we are mortals, and these secrets were collected and passed down bit by bit by the royal family back then. Speaking of which, there is indeed something wrong with Princess Shen Yuan. In fact, there were many heirs in the royal family at that time. The queen gave birth to 2 princes and 2 princesses. Logically, no one would care about a small princess. But, when the queen was pregnant with her, a strange phenomenon appeared in the whole world. In the 10th month of pregnancy, the entire kingdom was surrounded by flowers, and countless spiritual birds were hovering over the royal family. The sky and the earth are vast, and it seems that all the strange things are there to welcome her. End of this chapter. My koi sister is 3.5 years old. Author, Xia Sheng. Chapter 264. Chapter 264. He is not as unlucky as the broom star. Harm, you don't know. Every country and every royal family has historians who record the words and deeds of the emperor, as well as all the actions taken during his reign. Princess Shen Yuan, she is the only princess in the world who has been recorded. Everything she owns is completely recorded in a side hall to store everything she owns. She is so strange. Her birth was like the heaven and earth boiling to welcome her. The whole country is paying attention to her birth. The day she was born was extremely grand. It is said that all the gods in heaven and earth loomed in the sky and showed their figures. But there is such a person. But when she was born, she... Jia paused. She's weird. Such a person who is favored by God should be very smart, but she is really stupid to the extreme. But there is no less partiality in the world. By the way, the queen had a dream on the day she gave birth. She dreamed that countless gods in the sky looked at her and asked her to enshrine Princess Shen Yuan's horoscope in the imperial temple and accept the worship of the world. She never cried or made trouble when she was young, just like a silly beauty. She didn't learn to speak until she was 10 years old. Jia pondered for a moment. Actually, I checked the ancient books later and connected the two. Probably, she only learned to speak after being worshipped by the world for 10 years. There was a saying to describe her at that time. She was like a puppet with no sorrow, no joy, and no heart. She had only form and no spirit. When she was about 15 years old, she gradually learned basic writing, her temperament gradually became more cheerful, and she could occasionally say a few words, but still no one could enter her heart. She still seemed an empty person. Except for knowing you can talk when you eat, but it's still empty. Even, She is still desolate. The biggest change was meeting Emperor Lingxiao. She even opened a separate booklet and wrote a diary to scold him. Later, everyone discovered that when she got along with Emperor Lingxiao, she was more like an ordinary girl with emotions. Later, she ascended without hesitation. The outside world thought that the Emperor and Princess Shen Yuan were living together in the divine world. Who knows, one of these two is a fallen angel and the other is a righteous god. You said that after Shen Yuan ascended, his figure was erratic and so transparent that he could hardly see clearly. Fu Juxiao suddenly looked at Jia, and Jia was startled by his gaze. Yes. She was neither sad nor happy when she was born, neither cried nor fussed. She was worshipped by the world for 10 years before she learned to speak and walk. Fu Juxiao asked again. Jia nodded. Fu Juxiao sighed deeply. She is not a puppet. She is gathering souls. But according to what you said, when she came down, she didn't even have a soul? When she ascended, she didn't even have a soul. Fu Juxiao couldn't hide the shock in her eyes. Really just a shell. The God realm sent her down, and she only gathered one soul in her life. It costs so much to gather one of the 3 souls and 7 souls. Even before this, countless efforts were made to get her to enter reincarnation. You must know that without the 3 souls and 7 souls, no one can enter reincarnation. It took countless efforts to find a breath that allowed her to become Shen Yuan and restore her soul. No wonder he would rather fight with the Emperor of the fallen angels realm than to protect her. Who is she? Who is she? How can she make the God realm spend so much effort? Fu Juxiao couldn't hide her shock. With the efforts of the 3 realms, only one soul can be raised. Daijun Lingxiao did not lose unjustly. The straight man is tempted. But the other party has no heart at all. If she only has one soul, then that makes sense. God has clearly given her everything she has, but he has left her stupid, doing everything in a lukewarm way. Come to think of it, only an incomplete soul can explain it. Oh! Jia suddenly slapped her head. If we say that she can only reincarnate in the human world to gather her soul, wouldn't it mean that after she ascended, she immediately entered the second reincarnation? Going down with Emperor Lingxiao again. Jia's eyes flashed with gossip. Oh, he's so unlucky, he's not going to happen to him again, right? Jia smiled like a thief, looking like she was just watching the fun and not taking it too seriously. Look, 3 souls and 7 souls, the first soul encountered them. Maybe they will encounter each other later. Oh, if they really meet, won't they have to fall into her hands whether they come back or not? Ha 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 ha. Jia laughed like a pig. Will the fallen angel realm go crazy? Jia became more and more excited as she thought about it. Fu Juxiao glanced at her. What nonsense are you talking about? Then why is he the fallen angel emperor? Go back and be a broomstick. In every calamity, I have encountered someone who gathered 3 souls and 7 souls. My brain is not working well, and my luck is not working well. This is the reincarnation of the disaster star. How can I be so unlucky that the fallen angel realm doesn't know how to operate? Fu Juxiao gets a headache when she thinks about Emperor Lingxiao's love affair. The one digging wild vegetables is not as miserable as him, Sushui also commented. Just as he was about to say something more, he heard the palace man outside whispering, "Your Majesty, the saint has arrived at the underground palace, you should go there." At this moment, civil and military officials were kneeling on both sides of the road, and the people were also kneeling on the ground. The underground palace is extremely large, but the walls are very strong and difficult to dig. Only a way can be made. The courtiers saw Yan Sushui and did not dare to say anything. They were still waiting for her to coax the empress to stay for a few years. Please come in, there is a layer of reinforcement on top to prevent collapse. He led everyone into the mausoleum. The mausoleum is as bright as day, surrounded by luminous pearls. Princess Shen Yuan was afraid of the dark, so he went to the East China Sea to grab a lot of night glow pearls for her to use in lighting lamps. Even the mausoleum was built according to Princess Shen Jiayuan's preferences. Once entering the underground palace, Fu Juxiao's figure shook violently, as if someone had hit him the brain. "What's wrong? Brother Juxiao, you hate Ling Xiao, a love brain. Why don't you wait outside the underground palace?" Sushui looked at him with concern. Fu Juxiao stood up with strength. "Brother Juxiao is with you." The further inside, the heavier Fu Juxiao's heart became. He is a little uneasy. Gradually, the front becomes more and more open. A group of women in white dresses were already sitting cross-legged around the crystal coffin, forming a circle. The saint's face was filled with sadness. Sure enough, she was their god. The huge crystal coffin, exuding a luxurious and mysterious atmosphere, is placed quietly in the middle. Vaguely, you can see a man in black clothes lying in the center. Male face. It is exactly the same as Fu Juxiao. Fu Juxiao's face turned dark. End of this chapter. My koi sister is 3.5 years old. Author, Xia Shengsheng. Chapter 265. Chapter 265. I am the wronged emperor. Unlucky. It's really unlucky to step on a horse. It actually looks exactly the same as Love Brain. At this moment, Fu Juxiao's frustration reached the sky. The true form of the is so different from the statue. Brother Juxiao, you don't have to come close. I'm afraid you'll spit out the face after seeing Emperor Ling Xiao's face. You used to think that others were ugly and foolish, and you were stupid in love. Sushui pulled his sleeves and said seriously. Comfort. Fu Juxiao coughed lightly. Actually, it's not that ugly. And touched his face. Sushui glanced at him suspiciously. As soon as he got close to the crystal coffin, Sushui's eyes suddenly widened. Looking blankly at Emperor Ling Xiao lying peacefully in the coffin. Emperor Ling Xiao's eyebrows were tightly closed, but he was a little more profound and mysterious than Fu Juxiao. His whole body was cold and inhuman. Brother Juxiao, you and Emperor Ling Xiao look alike, Sushui shouted loudly. At this moment, Fu Juxiao felt the eyes of everyone around her, and the tips of her ears turned red. The saint looked up at Fu Juxiao, looking at him with deep eyes. It seems as if the pupils are emitting different lights. The saint's breathing was rapid and she looked at him intently. Who wants to be like this brainless thing like him? If I were him, I would stop living and find a rope to hang myself down. I have lived so many years in vain. Fu Juxiao sneered. He would not be as stupid as Emperor Ling Xiao. Seeing how mercilessly he spoke, the saint moved her lips as if she wanted to say something. Holy girl, open the coffin. Jia looked at the holy girl and then at Fu Juxiao. The saint took a deep breath to calm down the shock in her heart. He then took 12 maids with him to perform the rituals together, chanting simple and profound incantations. A small light array suddenly appeared at the feet of the 12 people. There were countless mysterious patterns in the light array, and the rays of light were connected to each other, forming a huge magic circle. The aura in the air is so rich that it can be transformed into substance. The face of the 28-year-old saint was rapidly aging. The 12 maids looked shocked and looked at her in fear. This is not a coffin opening ceremony. The saint grinned slightly and nodded towards the 12 maids. The maids looked at each other and then nodded heavily. The saintess clan originated from the maidservants of Princess Shen Yuan. After Princess Shen Yuan ascended to the throne, Emperor Ling Xiao passed down the inheritance to the maid clan, and the Saint Maiden clan protected Shen Yuan from generation to generation. At this moment, the 16-year-old saint's face was aging rapidly. Her rosy skin became more and more saggy, and more wrinkles appeared on her eyebrows. A head of beautiful black hair, turning white from the tips little by little. In the blink of an eye, the saint changed from a 16-year-old woman to a 60-year-old gray-haired old lady. The light grew brighter and brighter, and the saint was seen spilling a trace of blood as she finished reciting the last spell. The saint almost gritted her teeth and shot a ray of light into Ling Xiao's body. Open the coffin. The crystal coffin that just couldn't be opened after all the efforts was now opened with a gentle push. The air is filled with a faint fragrance. Fresh and pleasant, with a hint of sweetness after one puff. Snap! The saint collapsed directly to the ground. At this moment, she has gray hair and her life has already begun to count down. Saint, everyone exclaimed, even though Jia didn't like the saint, their faces were full of worry at this moment. The saint, who had always been serious about words, laughed softly. Laughter is full of relief. The imprisonment of the saintess family was finally released. From now on, there will be no more saintess family. Slave, you have completed your mission. The saint fell to the ground, her eyes falling on Fu Juxiao and Yan Sushui blankly. In her eyes, Yan Sushui is clearly the young version of Princess Shen Yuan. Princess Shen Yuan, who was neither sad nor happy in her memory, is now smiling like a flower. This time, you should succeed, right? The saint gradually closed her eyes. The saint's family has been passed down for countless generations, and every life is waiting for her return. The moment the crystal coffin is opened, Sushui moved forward uncontrollably, and the little girl pursed her lips tightly, not knowing why. Seeing the man's hands clasped alternately in front of him and his brows looking peaceful, Sushui felt a little uncomfortable. Sushui raised her hand and touched her face. Her face was wet and full of tears. I cried. Why should I cry? Sushui murmured in a low voice. Suddenly a picture flashed before my eyes. The man as powerful as a leaned over and asked her, Yuan, when will you be able to have me in your heart? The little girl tilted her head. What does it mean to have you? You are always by my side. No, I want your heart. The powerful man looked at her with a dark expression. Yuan groaned, reached out and pulled out a beating red heart from her chest. You gave me my cultivation, so why not give me my heart? The man opposite him suddenly fell silent. Not a word was spoken. The sudden memory made Sushui feel dazed for a while, as if she had become that Yuan. The moment Sushui approached, the remains of the gods in the crystal coffin suddenly began to scatter. He is waiting. Awaiting her arrival. Waiting for her to come and see him. The gods are leaving. Everyone shouted and knelt on the ground, watching helplessly as Emperor Lingxiao was reduced to ashes bit by bit. The moment Emperor Lingxiao disappeared, Fu Juxiao felt a strong memory rushing towards him. The past of Emperor Lingxiao flashed inexplicably before his eyes, as vividly as if he had seen it with his own eyes. No, it is not the past of Emperor Lingxiao. It's him. Every moment was something he had truly experienced. The temple provides shelter from the rain and gives her eyeballs. Give her the sense of taste, give her the sense of hearing. Cultivation means exploding fireworks. Divine blood turns into flowers. Cultivation is a gift to a beautiful woman. Fu Juxiao's handsome eyebrows have already been twisted into twists. The love brain whom he disliked so much and who he angrily rebuked countless times was himself. Pap pap pap, my face was swollen by myself. Oh ha ha. He is the reincarnation of Emperor Lingxiao. Yes, he is the great wretch of Emperor Lingxiao. There was a clang sound. Brother Juxiao, what's wrong with you? Sushui turned her head and saw Fu Juxiao lying limp on the ground. Jia hurriedly asked people to send Fu Juxiao out. Fu Juxiao, hey, I want to leave this world. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. My koi sister is 3.5 years old. Author, Xia Sheng. Chapter 266. Chapter 266 Mirror of Reincarnation. Fujuxiao had a dream. In the dream, I turned into the silly and sweet-looking dog of Emperor Ling Xiao. Abandoning the entire realm of the fallen angels for a mortal woman, failing all the calamities, and re-entering reincarnation. In the dream, he seemed to have lost his brainstem, and he doted on Princess Shen Yuan to the extreme. It was clear that Princess Shen Yuan was just taking shelter from the rain, but he was so stunned that he took everything into his heart, liver, and lungs. Fujuxiao opened his eyes in despair. Why should he be reminded of all this thing? Everything he ever scolded, oh well, it all fell on him. What a sin! I'm not that idiot like Ling Xiao. I have no status at all for the sake of a woman. I don't have the backbone of a man or a superior, Fujuxiao murmured in a low voice, with a hint of murderous intent in his brows. As soon as he sat up, he saw Sushui entering the door with a pout on his face and an aggrieved look on his face. Brother Juxiao, the flowers on Sushui have fallen off. This is Sushui's favorite skirt. The flowers have fallen off. The little girl pinched a small yellow flower at the corner of her skirt, with tears in her eyes. Fujuxiao immediately turned over and sat up. Don't cry, it's a small matter. Brother Juxiao will make up for you. Fujuxiao, a generation emperor, skillfully took out his sewing kit from his arms and sat cross-legged on the bed. Like an old lady, she threaded her needle and thread and quickly embroidered small yellow flowers on her. Look, is it the same as before? Don't cry. Brother Juxiao didn't even bring the imperial edict, so I brought a sewing kit specially for you. He rubbed her little head, feeling full of affection unconsciously. Brother Juxiao is so good, he is the best brother in the world. To thank Brother Juxiao, Sushui brought back the crystal coffin where Emperor Ling Xiao slept. Xiao Sushui smiled like a thief. Fujuxiao was stunned. To be honest, he didn't want to hear anything about Emperor Ling Xiao. Shame on you. Shame on you. What are you bringing back for? Are you also his believer? Fujuxiao asked in a low voice, his tone a little guilty, but Sushui didn't notice it at all. Sushui shook her head, looking suspicious. Brother Juxiao, you said that Emperor Ling Xiao is a wild god. How can Sushui believe in a wild god? He also asked Sushui to secretly take the statue of the wild and put it on the corner of the table. Fujuxiao's eyes twitched. He didn't dare to respond at all. Now he understood what it meant to shoot oneself in the foot. Sushui brought the crystal coffin back because he wanted to give it to Brother Juxiao. When Brother Juxiao dies, if he doesn't want to be cremated, he can put it there. Sushui will cry for you personally. Sushui is experienced. The cry is sad, and the voice is so loud that my throat doesn't hurt. It sounds extremely touching. I have experience. And it can also prevent the corpse from decaying. If Sushui misses you, you can dig it out and take a look. Sushui secretly whispered into his ear. This is a good thing. It's not even common in the world of gods. Fujuxiao's face darkened, and he stepped on his horse to dig it out and take a look. No, you really want to die for me? Fujuxiao's temples were twitching. Sushui, you don't have to save this kind of thing so early, right? After all, I'm still young. Fujuxiao glanced at her. Sushui disagreed with her face. Who can live a lifetime without encountering some surprises? This is called being prepared. Don't waste it. Good things must be kept anyway. Sushui has already taken up the space. Fujuxiao couldn't compete with her, so he had to give up. The word integrity flashed through his mind, and Fujuxiao paused. It's just a coffin, it has nothing to do with integrity. As for the sewing kit, it is not spineless to sew the heirs. How can hurting Sushui be called spineless? He is different from Emperor Ling Xiao. Sushui held her stomach and cried pitifully that she was hungry and wanted to eat local food. This is Shenyuan, so it's not easy to find local cuisine. Fujuxiao once learned several special dishes in order to please Sushui. He immediately showed off his skills and made Sushui smile. Emperor Ling Xiao is so stupid. He probably can't even cook. To capture a person's heart, you must first capture his stomach. That body's cultivation level is useless. Fu Juxiao looked proud. Go out after lunch. The saint is dead. I heard that the saint's family cannot marry and cannot leave Shen Yuan. They have been waiting for Princess Shen Yuan and Emperor Ling Xiao for all their lives. Before the death of each saint, a new saint will be selected from Shen Yuan. I don't know how they choose a saint. Every saint seems to know their mission by birth. Yan Ming frowned. He came together to inspect the property and only met Sushui occasionally. But the saint in this life died before choosing a successor. Could it be that she waited for the emperor and princess? Yan Ming was puzzled. Fu Juxiao pinched Sushui's fingertips. He was the emperor, but what about Shen Yuan? Has Princess Shen Yuan come back? Although he inherited Ling Xiao's memory, he didn't pay much attention to Shen Yuan's feelings. Now Jia is still hesitating whether to announce the truth about the emperor and the princess, Sushui said softly. Fu Juxiao pondered for a moment and shook his head. It's not appropriate to announce it. This is already the support of this dynasty. The people's faith will be weakened. Jia thinks so too, Sushui whispered. Fu Juxiao frowned. Actually, he felt a little embarrassed. Since Sushui came to Shen Yuan, Jia has ignored the government affairs and talked about going back to be a maid all day long. 100 civil and military officials could not persuade him, so he asked for permission under Sushui's name. Jia burst into tears when she agreed to stay. The position of the eldest maid must be reserved for me. You must not leave Jia behind. Being an empress is not as good as being a maid of a goddess. Sushui pointed to the sky and swore that he would do it, and Jia felt relieved. As for Fu Juxiao, a summons kept coming from his mind at this moment. Ever since he had the memory of Emperor Ling Xiao, he would often hear someone calling him. Call him to come back. Seeing that Sushui and Jia were having fun at this moment, Fu Juxiao left the place quietly and followed the voice. Sushui glanced outside the door and saw Fu Juxiao's leaving figure. As he was talking, he heard an announcement coming from outside. Your Majesty, there is news about Yuan Hai. Jia sat up slightly. Has it been salvaged? Jia's face tightened slightly. Yes. Sushui rarely saw Jia looking like this, so she immediately asked, are you fishing for seafood? Jia laughed and said, go and arrange seafood for my master. Then she explained, no. She lowered her voice and secretly said, have you ever heard of the mirror of reincarnation? The mirror of reincarnation can peek into the past and see the future. I came here to see Emperor Ling Xiao's afterlife, and I always feel that he will be harmed by Princess Shen Yuan. A three-realm reincarnation mirror that even gods can detect. Sushui's eyes widened. The year she was first conceived, she was very curious about whether a creature like her, a creature born in heaven, would have a past or a future. He stole it from the world of gods. The moment it shined on his face, the color of the sky and the earth changed, and the situation changed drastically. He was caught by the heavenly Dao on the spot. Later, Tiandao cast a spell to suppress the mirror of reincarnation, but we still don't know where it is. End of this chapter. My koi sister is 3.5 years old. Author, Xia Sheng. Chapter 267. Chapter 267 The Mysterious Treasure in Space. Where did you get the reincarnation mirror? Sushui's eyes widened. Daddy Tiandao hid it well. Jia snickered, you don't know that the mirror of samsara has been suppressed under the UNC. It couldn't be discovered originally, but the mirror of samsara gave birth to sanity and is a divine object. It stays under that UNC all day long. Ouch, the clues were discovered. Jia immediately showed a bit of disdain on her face. That's why several of my uncles who were vying for the throne died because of this. They used 999 people to sacrifice to the sea. The mirror of samsara is a sacred object and cannot be stained with blood. If it is stained with blood, it will lose its divinity and be easily controlled by others. The mirror of reincarnation was found, but it's a pity that they fought to death, which was an advantage to Jia. Jia will take you to see it later. Jia didn't hesitate at all and immediately took Sushui towards Yuanhai. Yuanhai was about 3 days away from Shengjing. Sushui could not find Fujuxiao, so he only had someone leave a message for him. The closer you get to Yuanhai, you can smell the obvious fishy smell of the sea between your nose. Sushui played with a round bead with her fingers, but Jia squinted her eyes and said calmly, "Girl, the bead in your hand is like the Lingxiao Emperor's eyeball recorded by Princess Shen Yuan. The book records that after Emperor Lingxiao dug out his eyeball, it turned into a nail-sized bead with clear black and white. Although they had his eyes gouged out, there was nothing strange about his appearance. Beads seemed to contain a sea of stars, one black and one white, clearly distinguishable. It is exactly the same as the one in Sushui's hand." Sushui looked down and saw that this thing was gathering dust in her space. She only used it to play with it occasionally. It shouldn't be such an unlucky thing. Sushui put it away casually. Jia saw her casual look and thought she was overthinking it. "Actually, we guess that the second emperor is still in Shen Yuan. He has obviously fallen, but Shen Yuan is still protected by him. That's enough to explain everything." Everyone stayed at the seaside. This is Yuanhai. There is a small island in the middle. We will take a boat there in a moment. But you must block your ears on the boat. There are sharks singing on the Yuanhai. The sharks will lose their minds and people were dragged into the sea. Their singing is very beautiful, but I can't hear the lyrics clearly, and I don't know what language it is from. The sharks are beautiful, and their voices are very good at confusing the mind. Countless people want to capture them, but most of them are swallowed by the sharks, even their bones. Sui has never seen a shark, only shark pearl. Shark pearl, a spiritual pearl transformed into a dead shark after death. The little guy stood on the bow of the boat, looking around. Not to mention being very interested. When the boat reached the middle of Yuanhai, a white mist suddenly appeared, blocking the sight, and Sushui's eyelids twitched. I saw everyone on the boat clenching their weapons and plugging their ears. "Be careful, it's a shark." Sure enough, the words just fell. Sushui heard a beautiful singing voice in her ears, but, as she listened, it seemed familiar to her. How come this song looks so similar to the lullaby Fujuxiao puts her to sleep every day? Not long after, the fog approached, and I couldn't see my fingers, and there was white mist everywhere. Everyone was quiet, no one noticed, and Sushui didn't plug her ears. There were sparkling waves on the water, and there was a faint sound of water. "Aren't you afraid of me? Come closer to me, closer." A mysterious and beautiful voice sounded in Sushui's ears. Sushui raised her eyes and saw a fish-tailed shark in the white mist looking at her with a smile. Smiled, then frowned slightly. Strange, why does his vocal range have no effect? Everyone who hears his voice will jump into Yuanhai without hesitation and stay with him for the rest of his life. Why are we afraid of you? Why do we want to get closer to you? You smell fishy. Sushui paused, her face a little embarrassed. But I have a question to ask you, can you answer me? The little guy's eyes were bright. There is a bit of arrogance in the shark's eyebrows. The shark is full of treasures. Stupid and greedy mortals always hope to get more things. Every person whose mind is captivated by him will express his truest desire. This child seems to be the same. Just being more vigilant. One of the first few people he dragged into the water asked him, "Can I give him the treasures in the sea?" One of them was obsessed with his voice and his beauty. "I want to hide you and be with you forever." That person was a man. In the end, he swallowed it into his belly, leaving not even a bone. There were many more, too many for him to remember. At this moment, he was lying on the sparkling water, showing an enchanting smile. "Oh, do you want to ask about wealth? There is countless wealth in the sea, and there are even huge treasures. Or, you want to ask about my beauty?" Charmin was not sure whether a 5 or 6-year-old child would understand this. Sure enough, the little girl opposite frowned. "You are not as good looking as brother Juxiao. I wanted to ask." Sushui slowly said something under the shark's cold gaze. "Does your fish tail have thorns? Is it tender? Is it tender? The tail is often swung, so the tail meat should be delicious, right?" As she spoke, she took a sip of saliva. The shark's cheeks slowly condensed, revealing a rare doubt. "You smell so fishy, can onions and garlic cover it up?" Sushui looked serious. The shark was immediately furious. "You are teasing me. What do you mean by this?" Sushui waved his hand and said, "This is related to whether you will become my bracelet or a fish ball. Please be more serious, this is a step that must be taken to eat monsters." "Damn it, I will definitely eat you." The shark's eyes were red. Sushui was shocked. "You still eat people? Then you can't make fish balls. Unlucky." Sushui rolled up her sleeves, revealing a string of crystal clear beads on her sleeves. The shark froze for a moment, his eyes fixed on the bracelet in her hand. "How could it be? How could you have such a thing?" The shark's voice almost screamed, and he looked at the string of beads in her hand with fear. Each bead is crystal clear, as if there are mermaids swimming on it. "That is the shark bead of the shark, it will only be transformed after death. And the shark bead on it has a slightly different aura than ordinary people, it is the Shark King. It is a bead made by the Shark Kings of past dynasties." The shark almost leaned forward. What kind of evil star did he encounter today? Sushui looked at the bracelet. She couldn't remember where it came from. Anyway, there were a lot of messy things in her space. This space has been with her for as long as she can remember, these things have been there. It seems to be innate. The bead that is similar to the eyes of Emperor Ling Xiao also comes with the space. Perhaps it was given to her by Father Tiandao. Charmin suddenly looked at her blankly. "It's you. It's you who are back." Sushui was a little confused. She had never seen a shark before. Why did the shark look so frightened? Before he had time to deal with it, he saw the shark self-destruct on the spot. "I can't help you, and I hope you won't anger the Shark Clan." Immediately, it turned into a shark bead. Sushui looked confused since the shark beads were incorporated into her bracelet. End of this chapter. My koi sister is 3.5 years old. Author, Xia Shengsheng. Chapter 268. Chapter 268 The Girl Who Killed the Gods. Where are the sharks? The fog cleared, and when Jia saw Sushui again, she was sitting on the deck eating fish balls. "Where did you get the fish balls?" Jia was stunned for a moment. How should Sushui explain to her that she just had another Shark King pearl? How should I explain to her that the Shark Clan automatically sent fish balls? The shark family is half human and half demon when they are wise. What she eats is naturally unintelligent and does not belong to human beings. "Ah, we're on the island." Sushui pointed dryly into the distance and stuffed all the fish into her mouth. Her cheeks were swollen several times. Jia was so frightened that she hurriedly pinched her cheeks. Spit it out, it's too much." Pinch and spit out one piece, pinch and spit out one piece. With such a small mouth, I don't know how it can hold 7 fish balls, and it spits them out one after another like dragon balls. Until the last one, Sushui gritted her teeth and turned red before holding on. "Don't eat so much next time, you'll get stuck." Jia turned pale with fright. Sushui said "oh" and landed on the island at this moment. Jia then supported her and walked ahead. This place is full of sandy beaches, with only a few coconut trees occasionally visible. It's about 3 days' journey from land. These people almost never leave the island. Once a month, Ship merchants from outside will come with goods, and the islanders can exchange sea goods for what they need. This also means that their development is extremely low and extremely ignorant, right? Gia asked. Someone walked beside Gia and introduced her. Yes, the Empress's famous name. They are in the middle of the sea, and it is difficult to go anywhere. They are attacked by the kraken from time to time, and they have to watch the sea to eat when the tide is high. They can even flood to the center of the island. At this time, they would sacrifice to the sea. Sushui paused. How do you offer sacrifices to the sea? The palace man replied in a low voice, use people to sacrifice to the sea. I hope that the anger of the sea can be calmed. This kind of sacrifice can only exist on the sea. They call this the marriage of Poseidon. The woman who was sacrificed was the bride of Poseidon. This attendant grew up by the sea and knows more than others. Sacrifices to the sea have actually been taking place since ancient times. However, the last time they offered sacrifices to the sea was hundreds of years ago. Since then, they have never been successful again. Everyone moved forward, and many islanders secretly hid in the dark to observe them. As soon as Sushui looked over, they ran away in panic. The small mirror that was caught is right in front. I will take you to have a look. Everyone surrounded the Empress and went directly to the island owner's house. Speaking of which, the island here is a no-nonsense zone. The island is small and difficult to manage. Moreover, Gia has no interest in such a small place. This small island can only survive through cracks. Knowing that Gia was coming, the island owner was already waiting at the door. Get up. The houses here are built with stones, and there are many small sea fish hanging under the eaves, which looks unique. The island owner is an old man. When he saw Sushui's greedy look, he immediately said, my old lady is good at cooking seafood. Why don't I make a table for you? Shenyuan is a big country, and if the Empress is dissatisfied at all, she can destroy this small island. He is worried about how to build relationships. Sushui nodded reservedly. Fujuxiao said that nodding too much and too quickly will make you appear rude. Then, click on it. He stretched out his hand and wiped a handful of saliva. Fujuxiao didn't say not to drool anyway. As soon as she entered the door, she smelled the smell of blood. This mirror is so weird. We haven't dared to touch it since we salvaged it. Sure enough, the mirror was surrounded by blood, which made people look at it. The sky was dark and the sea breeze was smelly. The island owner glanced at the sky from time to time and sighed from time to time. Your Majesty, take the mirror. If nothing happens, you can leave the island early. Recently, I'm afraid the tide will rise. The island owner sighed. They were in the middle of the sea, and every time the tide rose, it would be a disaster. The rising tide can bring fish. Why are you so worried? Sushui was a little curious. Girl, our high tide will flood the island every time everyone stands on the roof, praying to God to retreat quickly. Do you understand that kind of despair? The island owner gave a bitter smile. The sky is dark and gloomy. I'm afraid a big one is going to happen. If we are unlucky, the island may be destroyed. I don't dare to sacrifice to the sea now. Hey, the island owner scratched his thin hair. Speaking of which, there has been no sacrifice to the sea for hundreds of years. In the past, every time we worshipped the sea, the weather would be smooth for a long time. Since that sacrifice, there will be even crazier storms in Hawaii. The high tide is accompanied by a storm, which is simply the end of the world. The island owner slowly fetched the sea records, which recorded in detail every sacrifice to the sea. Gia did a rough talk and found out that Sushui was holding a fish in her hand and her bites made a clicking sound. The last time we offered sacrifices to the sea was 600 years ago. Turn forward. It is unclear when the sacrifice to the sea was made, and no record can be found. It is written in the annals of Danhai that the first sacrifice 1,000 years ago, 7 mortal women were sacrificed to the sea to calm the anger of the sea and ensure the peace of the island for 100 years. The second sacrifice 900 years ago, 7 mortal women were sacrificed to the sea to calm the anger of the sea and protect the island for 100 years. Continues until the fourth festival. What are you offering sacrifices to the sea? Gia suddenly asked. The island owner paused and hesitated for a moment. Actually, it's the god of Poseidon. The fourth festival happened to be when the new god of Poseidon came to power. So, we specially selected a few women who were compatible with them. There was also one of them who was born on the same year, same month, and same day as him. When the girl was born, she looked extraordinary. When she came out of her mother's womb, she still held a bead tightly in her hand. It was black and white, and it looked like eyes. Poof. Gia just took a sip of tea and coughed up suddenly. Shen Yuan's second life? That Poseidon? Isn't it really the unlucky Emperor Ling Xiao? She just said casually, did we really meet him? Gia immediately sat up straight. You said that, and I got excited. Hey, it happened to be that the new Poseidon was born at that time, so we chose a woman who was suitable for him. That woman. The old island owner sighed. High Z was compiled every year, and now it is almost rotten. He is extremely courageous and extremely aggressive. He refuses to obey the heavens or the earth. He keeps talking about taking out the Poseidon and beating him up. He scolds the Poseidon at the beach all day long. One day he will kill the Poseidon. She was probably born a little extraordinary. I guess she really has the power to kill gods. The island has already explained to her that she will sacrifice herself to the sea when she is 18 years old. She must not have any contact with the outside world. High's Hilly records that one year when the tide rose, a handsome young man washed up in the sea. The young man has red lips and white teeth, and looks like a handsome scholar. He may have hit a rock in the sea, damaged his head, and cannot remember the past. Everyone speculates that he fell into the water from a foreigner. She served him carefully all day long. She ate and slept with the young man, and the relationship was extremely close. Speaking of which, that young man is very lucky. Whenever he goes out to sea with him, he can catch good things. When he comes back, it's like the things in the sea are lined up waiting for everyone to catch them. Sushui was startled, and something became clear in her heart. I'm afraid that the young man is the sea who accidentally came ashore, and the mortal girl is really the reincarnation of Shen Yuan. The first ray of soul was retrieved by Emperor Ling Xiao. When they meet after reincarnation, there is a high probability that they will be extremely close to him. This will be the greatest opportunity for Emperor Ling Xiao. But when the second soul returns, it will not be affected. Because she will be more like her original self. Later, her sacrifice to the sea gradually came closer. She never told the boy about the sacrifice to the sea. She only made an appointment with him to elope with him the night before. The island owner sighed, hey, that young man came suddenly and disappeared suddenly. She wore a bright red wedding dress and waited at the beach all night. When it got dark, she took off her red wedding dress and changed into white mourning clothes. The islanders tied her to the seaside. 7 girls stood in a row, all wearing red wedding clothes, but she was the only one wearing mourning clothes. Some were crying, some were making trouble, but she was the only one with an expressionless face. She also swore to the sky, if I ever see the young man again by chance, I will personally beat him to death for being such a heartless man. Hey, she has a fierce temper. If she really finds out the heartless man, that heartless man will die. Sacrifice to the sea, it can be considered as saving the young man's life. Gia's eyes widened. The killing weapons have been sent. Are you sure you saved that young man's life? You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. My koi sister is 3.5 years old. Author, Xia Sheng. Chapter 269. Chapter 269. Fuyuk Xiao's Fierce Wife. The Poseidon marries, and the gods avoid it. Poseidon got married, and the gods avoided it. O Poseidon, these are the 7 wives we have chosen for you. Each of them is the most gentle and virtuous girl in the clan, and they will serve you obediently. This is the first sacrifice for the new Poseidon to succeed. They tried their best to select the most beautiful girl. Poseidon is the greatest in the world. You must serve Poseidon well and never be jealous. Let Poseidon protect our island. A sacrifice for good weather and good weather. The oldest one was chosen and pushed into the sea to become the eldest daughter-in-law. The second sacrifice brings peace to the world. Then he pushed a crying girl down, the second daughter-in-law. 3 sacrifices come and go, and it's safe to go to see the third daughter-in-law. The tide of the 4 sacrifice rises and falls, but does not cover the island. The 4th daughter-in-law. The 5 sacrifices will bring a lot of fish and a bumper harvest. The 5th daughter-in-law. 6 sacrifices to the god of the sea will bring you long life and eternal well-being. 6th daughter-in-law. When the girl in white clothes came to the end, the girl laughed coldly. This Poseidon is still a playboy, with 7 wives? The island owner glared at her, then knelt on the beach and shouted, Poseidon, this is a girl born in the same year, month, and day as you. This is your destiny. Let her be your little wife, and help you solve your problems. There are tasks ahead of her, and this one. Just to be the little wife of Poseidon. The island owner glanced at everyone and escorted the girl in white to the beach. The sea breeze caused the waves to hit the rocks, and the girl in white was pushed straight into the sea. In an instant, the figure was submerged by the blue water. What happened next? What happened next? Sushui looked at the old island owner curiously. The old island owner's face looked changed. Later, no one expected, 3 days later, a huge wave washed all the 6 wives in front back. To show his wrath, Poseidon washed the island several times, one wave after another. And, it is said that the cry of Poseidon can often be heard. No one knows what went wrong. Gia suppressed the smile at the corner of her mouth. Yes, yes, ha 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 ha. You sent the god-slaying girl to him, why wouldn't it be weird if he didn't make you cry? After everyone left, Gia pulled Sushui into the house. Mortals can't open the mirror of reincarnation, master. Gia looked at Sushui expectantly, and Sushui coughed slightly. In fact, she was also a little curious. He. Probably because of the blood sacrifice, the mirror of reincarnation gave off a cold air, which made Sushui feel uncomfortable. Use spiritual energy to remove a few points of blood from the mirror of reincarnation, and the mirror of reincarnation seems to have gradually returned to its original appearance. Still exactly the same as the one Sushui stole back then. After Sushui cast the spell, a light flashed on the samsara mirror. Faintly, I heard the sound of waves coming from the samsara mirror. Before I saw the scene, I heard a pleasant young man's voice. I didn't break the appointment, and I didn't lie to anyone. I came back to prepare a gift for marriage. The young man's voice was clear and a little aggrieved. Stop your mother's bullshit. These 7 daughters-in-law are all sitting in your palace. Damn thing, you lied to me, and you lied to me about my feelings. The girl seemed to be sobbing slightly. No wonder you broke the promise, it's because you want to marry 7 people. You're a heartless man. A slap in the face. When the picture appeared, it was when a handsome young man was slapped. The young man also has 2 small horns on his head. The horns are slightly rounded, as if he has just grown up. Master Poseidon, who turns his hands into clouds and turns his hands into rain, has condescended to come to my house to suffer. Are you wronged? Just because I scold you at sea all day long, and I want to do you, you come to my house to take revenge on me. The girl, wearing mourning clothes, pointed at Poseidon's nose with red eyes. There are still 6 brides lying in the dragon palace, not knowing whether they are alive or dead. The young man stammered anxiously, with sweat on the tip of his nose, I didn't, I'm not taking revenge on you. After speaking, he paused. Yes, I saw you angrily scolding me at sea. You said you were going to cut off my dragon's horns to make soup, and I got a little angry. I was going to come out to settle the score with you, but I was accidentally struck by thunder. Here. I didn't remember anything after that. I didn't mean to lie to you. I never thought about marrying those 6 brides. They jumped into my dragon palace on their own. The young man stamped his feet in anger, wishing he could throw them out. After he lost his memory, he knew how much the girl hated Hygie. Also knows that she hates Poseidon. The night before the elopement, he asked the girl what kind of gift she wanted. The girl murmured in a daze as she slept, "I want dragon tendons, I want dragon horns, I want to cut off the sea god." That night he punted into the sea to kill the gods. Who knows? After falling into the water, he regained his memory and turned into a dragon and flew into the sky. He doesn't know how to face his sweetheart. Have you cut yourself? Result: 7 brides came to his house. What an injustice to him. The girl sneered, "What can't you admit when you enjoy the blessing of everyone? Marrying one person is not as good as marrying 7. I'll catch you, you heartless man," adding new grudges to old grudges. She was cold on the spot. His face grasped the young man's long ears and squeezed them tightly. The young man screamed in pain. 3 days later, the 6 brides were sent back. The girl is really hot-tempered and makes the entire dragon palace restless. A group of shrimps, soldiers, and crabs will line up for her to choose and eat. Poseidon had a slap mark on his cheek. Heartless man. And he never called his name Fuuxiao again. Every time we meet, he is a heartless person. You heartless man, are you unhappy that I sent away those 6 beauties? Heartless man, who sang just now, it sounds great. The next day, a row of mermaids stood in her dragon palace and sang. She praised the shark's appearance with interest. On the 3rd day, she harvested a bunch of beads. You heartless man, you usually enter with your left foot, but now you enter with your right foot. Do you have any problem with me? I knew you were a heartless man. You just want to take revenge on me. The girl would cry whenever she disagreed with her. Whenever this happened, Poseidon would be particularly at a loss. Kneel down at her feet and slap himself. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have walked in with my left foot. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have spoken loudly to you, I'm sorry. Poseidon was also very desperate. What a lovely little wife of Poseidon. Obviously she is the fierce wife of Poseidon. Bully. Poseidon suddenly straightened up on his knees. He was afraid that the girl could hear the voice in his heart. Over time, 2 nail marks appeared on the ears. It was screwed out. Do you want to go back to your parents' home? One day, Poseidon asked the girl cautiously. Although you are married, you can still go back to your parents' home. His knees hurt from kneeling on sea urchins for a long time recently. Fuuxiao felt like he was guilty of evil. But whenever I see her crying, I feel so distressed that I can't stand it. End of this chapter. My koi sister is 3.5 years old. Author, Xia Sheng. Chapter 270. Chapter 270. It's all bubbles. The things that happened in the past are still flashing in the mirror of reincarnation. His dragon scales are so beautiful, they are sparkling. They would look great if they were made into clothes, Sushui muttered while lying in front of the samsara mirror. Jia looked at her in shock. The living king of is not as ruthless as you. The one in the mirror wants dragon tendons and horns, and the one outside the mirror wants dragon scales. Hey, why did the Poseidon turn into a mortal? It looks ordinary. Sushui was a little curious as to how he got ashore. After he landed ashore, he followed the islanders and ran towards the ancestral hall. Everyone is going to the ancestral hall for a meeting, Poseidon said angrily. Yes, since ancient times, no bride of Poseidon has been sent back. We have to discuss countermeasures. Hey, the sea is going to be angry again. Everyone hurriedly entered the ancestral hall against the sea wind. Poseidon stood in the crowd, not conspicuous at all. The old island owner looked worried, and the eyes of the 6 girls were swollen from crying. We don't know what's going on. When Poseidon sees us, it's like seeing ghosts. With a flick of his sleeves, he threw us back to the shore. Throwing and shouting at the same time, he didn't touch us, he didn't touch us, and he didn't know who he was explaining to. The 6 girls were in a terrible state. What about Lao Chi? Didn't she go down together? In just a few days, the old island owner's temples turned gray. That's right, Lao Chi has a hot temper. He has been shouting about killing the gods all day, but it probably has no good results. Poseidon, what's going on? Why don't you accept our offering? Poseidon turned into an ordinary person, standing in the corner, pinching his nose and shouting. How about we go and bring her back? She will definitely have a bad life at the bottom of the sea. If we bring her back, she will go back to her parents' home, Poseidon shouted loudly. The island owner frowned. It's nonsense, marrying the bride of Poseidon, there is no reason to come back, be careful to offend Poseidon. Ever since the sea festival, the roar of the sea can often be heard. The island owner was extremely worried. Poseidon, no, I was just beaten and came to complain. If you don't take me back, you will really offend me. It's absolutely impossible to come back. Maybe, Poseidon didn't like these 6. After all, the 7th one has the best face. Recently, a cargo ship came outside. There were some good-looking girls on the ship. I went to buy them. I'll throw them in tomorrow. The Poseidon must think they don't look good. That's right. Our fisher girls on the seaside are weathered and exposed to the sun, but they can't compare to the tender girls outside. The island owner immediately agreed. Poseidon suddenly raised his head. I'm going to die. Before I could think of a way to refuse, the beads on my neck lit up. It was the girl calling him. The young man ducked and left the ancestral hall. The plan to get the girl back to her parents' home failed immediately. As soon as he returned to the Dragon Palace, he saw the girl looking at him. Are you ashore? The young Poseidon suddenly looked wary. How do you know? The sand on your body is only found on our beach. After the girl said this, she turned and left. I went to buy your favorite fried fish, which is crispy, and the fruit wine you like to drink. Poseidon sent the purchased items up. Before he finished speaking, he could hear the soldiers coming from outside to report, to the island above, 7 more brides have been cast down. There was a pause after finishing speaking. This time the one is the most beautiful. Poseidon's whole body was stiff, and he could almost feel the girl's eyes about to spit out fire. A bump. A luminous pearl hit him directly on the head. Okay, what's wrong with you? Do you think I'm aggressive? It's only been a few days, and you're going out to pick wildflowers, and you're going out to buy food for me. I'm so proud of you. You've got 7 new wives for yourself, you, the little girl cried as she spoke. My eyes were red and swollen from crying, and I hiccuped while crying. Poseidon didn't care about being hit on the head. He tried to coax and admit his mistake, but he couldn't coax the little girl. Hey, why did you go up to trouble her in the first place? He was struck by lightning and lost his memory. Now she only believes that she has become immortal and deliberately deceived her feelings. Poseidon has no son. Thinking again that she likes shiny skirts and often sees mermaids with their tails in a daze. He then plucked out his own dragon scales and became bald. Made her a shiny tail. The girl was wearing a dragon scale mermaid suit, and the water automatically avoided her, so she swam extremely happily in the sea. The 7 brides were sent back again. By the way, a big wave was sent to punish those idiots. From then on, Poseidon never accepted sacrifices again. Because once he was sacrificed, he had to be beaten once. Time flies by in the mirror of reincarnation, passing very quickly. The girl gradually lost her appearance, her figure showed an old look, and her hair on her temples also showed white. She lay in the arms of the still handsome young man, breathing lightly. The young man asked with red eyes, "Can you wear a wedding dress for me again? I never wanted to get back at you. If I were to take revenge on you, how could I wash your feet, wash and cook for you, pick up embroidery needles for you, and build our cabin for you, on the island?" She and he once built a cabin with their own hands. The gray-haired old man seemed to want to laugh, but she had used up all her strength to speak and she could no longer laugh. "I won't wear it anymore. I'm old, what should I wear? You still look as good as before." The old man's eyes seemed to be filled with water. Who would have known that there was a magnificent dragon palace hidden under the sparkling sea? Who would have thought that she would spend her whole life here? From the day she fell into the dragon palace, she knew that she could not become the bride of Poseidon. Poseidon will share a lifetime with his wife. She is immortal, and one lifetime is enough. He is immortal and should not be limited by himself. Gia's eyelids twitched outside the reincarnation mirror. In this life, she actually chose a completely different ending from Shen Yuan. She chose to die as a mortal. She closed her eyes peacefully in front of Poseidon. It seems as if he is not dead. Her appearance is old, but the young man still looks at her blankly. Sudden. Her body began to scatter and began to turn into ashes bit by bit. Leave little by little from among the sea gods. How could this happen? No, no, Poseidon wailed sadly, trying to collect her soul, but her looming soul actually went straight towards the sky. How could it be a remnant soul?" said the sea without dragon horns and scales. 3 souls and 7 souls, she only has 2 souls. Her remnant soul was filled with golden light. She seemed to have no memory after her death, and was extremely indifferent to the world. The samsara mirror flickered and became clear again. It is the scene where the sea turns into foam and floats and sinks in the sea. Ah, it failed again as expected. Gia hissed, "She has such a crow mouth. She really got it right." However, the black and white bead on the girl's neck always seemed familiar. End of this chapter.